I have one son, Henry, aged 12. Henry is best friends with a boy named Archie, aged 14. It has always been clear that Archie comes from a troubled home. From what I can gather, Archie's mom is a drug addict, and Archie has been on the at-risk register for a long while. Honestly, I don't know why it has taken them this long to decide he is being moved into foster care. Last Friday, I received a call from my son's school saying they couldn't discuss it with me, but asked if I would give them consent for my information to be passed on to Archie's social worker. I agreed, and not long after, I had a call from his social worker explaining that a section something or other was being put in place, which meant that Archie was going to be removed from his home and placed into foster care. I was told that the school had recommended me and asked to see if I could take him in, basically. They said it would likely be long-term until he turns 18. I honestly didn't know what to say. I was in shock. I have been unofficially supporting Archie for a while now. I pick him up from his house and drop him off at school with my son. He spends a lot of weekends at my place. On days where he doesn't come to my place, I make sure to pack him something to eat when I pick him up because he told me that his school lunch is his only meal most days. I buy him soap and deodorant, and I even wash his clothes for him. But supporting however I can and taking him on fully is a big jump. I'm a single dad. I have a decent job, but I'm far from well off. I live in a small 2-bedroom house, meaning Henry and Archie would have to share a room, which they do now when Archie stays, but it's only for short bursts. Plus, there's the responsibility of taking on another human. I was told that they had a lack of foster carers in the local area, so if I didn't agree to take him, it is likely he would have to move counties and schools. I don't want that. I was already having Archie stay with me for the 2-week Christmas holiday, so I asked if I could think about it and give them a firm answer in the new year. They agreed. Archie has not yet been informed about any of this. I've tried to make this a normal Christmas for him as much as possible. My heart is telling me, of course, you're going to take that little boy in, but my brain is worried about the responsibility and cost of taking on another mouth to feed, another boy to clothe. At the same time, I keep thinking about Archie's situation. He has already had such a rough start in life, and I know he needs stability and care more than anything else. I can't bear the thought of him being uprooted again, losing his school, his friends, and the small semblance of normality he has here. I keep asking myself if I can really give him what he needs, and I don't know if I have all the answers right now. I've always taught Henry the importance of kindness, and I see how much he cares about Archie too. Part of me feels that this might not just be me taking on more responsibility, it's also about giving him the chance to grow up with a sense of love and belonging. So I suppose I'm left balancing what's practical with what feels right in my heart. And I'm leaning towards saying yes. I spoke to my own mom about it, and she thinks it's an awful idea. She's worried I'm biting off more than I can chew, especially as a single dad. She reminded me that I already have a lot on my plate with work, the house, and raising Henry on my own. She said that taking in another child, especially one with a difficult background, would add stress and might affect my ability to provide for Henry properly. She didn't say it outright, but I could tell she's afraid this might make life harder for all of us, including Archie. I understand her concerns, honestly I do, but I can't imagine just turning him away when he needs help the most. I told her that I haven't made a final decision yet, but that I need to think about what's best for everyone involved, not just what's easiest. And I haven't even discussed any of this with Henry yet, which will be a huge factor in my final decision. This has been a huge rant, and if you've read it, thank you. I just needed to get this out somehow. Now for a few important comments. One commenter asked if there is some kind of financial support for fostering. OP replied, "There is, but it really isn't a lot. It would help, but I'd likely still be at a loss each month, and I already have very little left over, which obviously I'm not saying I won't do it because of that, but it has to be something I consider." Another commenter shared their thoughts. "This sounds like a tough situation, and you have a good heart. I'm sure the foster team has thought about this, but a few questions. Are there any other carers in the area that are related to Archie? Grandparents, aunts, uncles, etc. That way you could still be in his life without a larger commitment than you expected. Is there a stable foster care option out of state? Change is hard, but kids are resilient, and one move may be worth it to offer stability. Archie could come visit, but have a permanent home. Are there social and financial supports available to you as a potential foster carer? The most important one, how does Henry feel about this? This is a huge adjustment, sharing a room, attention, etc. Could Henry make an informed decision? If he changes his mind after the fact, how will you navigate that? It's incredible you are considering it, and I wish you and your family all the best, no matter the outcome. OP responded, no other family members. I did mean to mention that, but no, Archie doesn't even know who his biological dad is, and there are no other family members. From what I gather, there aren't any suitable foster carers in the area, and so he would have to move counties, schools, etc. Yes, but it wouldn't be a lot. I haven't discussed it with Henry at all yet. Another commenter added, couple of thoughts. It's 4 years. Like, obviously kids need support well beyond 18 if you can provide it. But if you can get that kid to graduate high school, you would already be a saint, and nothing more could be expected of you. So it's not forever. Also, once that kid is 16, he can start working and helping around the house more legitimately. Both things are not just for your benefit, but also great things for him to learn. Ask social services what additional resources you'd have access to if you were to foster. For example, here where I live, foster kids qualify for free school lunches. So that's a cost you don't have to incur. I would also find a local foster parent group, as I'm sure there are other resources available that may not even be ran by the state. Real talk. If it was me, I would do it as long as I didn't think that Archie would be a danger to Henry. Like, unless you think Archie could be violent or an intimacy predator kind of kid. If he's a good kid, I would do everything in my power to make that happen. I would set up a GoFundMe if necessary. I would try to lean on my friends and family to help. Also, depending on what your job is, I would ask if they can help in any way. I say this as someone who works for a giant company. Yes, I would worry. But a 14-year-old kid in foster care is not something I'd be able to let happen to a kid I care about. I just wanted to come on and give an update. I want to say a huge thank you for all the responses. I genuinely didn't expect to receive so many replies, especially to something that was just meant to be a rant, to get my emotions out. When I was asked to take in Archie, at first I felt honored. Then I felt worried about everything. I am quite an anxious person in general, and my thoughts were flooded with concerns about whether I'd be good enough to support Archie in the way he needs. I love my mom, but she didn't help. I think I get my anxiety from her, although she has it on a much higher scale than I do. Every possible thing that could go wrong, she was texting me about all week. You're already stretched thin with work and Henry. You won't get one time with Henry anymore. How will you afford everything? These are real concerns, and I'm glad she brought them up because they gave me the opportunity to think about how I could mitigate them. A few of you mentioned the fostering allowance, which I knew about, but I couldn't find any concrete information on how much it would actually be. Every source online seemed to give a different answer, but none suggested it was very much. However, as some of you advised, I called the social worker's office and said I was seriously considering taking in Archie, which they were thrilled about, but I needed to understand the finances first to see if it was feasible. They said they could provide exact numbers, as every case is different, and it isn't decided until a placement is found. However, they told me the minimum would be around £190, about $240 US per week, and that it would likely be completely tax-free. Additionally, I'd receive a significant discount on things like council tax. That was honestly a lot more than I expected, and much higher than most of the figures I'd seen online. They also put me in touch with some other foster carers who answered my questions, which was incredibly helpful. This week has been very busy. I worked out my finances, added the estimated fostering allowance, and calculated how much Archie would likely increase my expenses. It worked out that I'd actually have a surplus compared to my current situation. Many of the foster carers I spoke to don't work full-time, using the allowance to supplement their income. I'm not sure if I want to do that, but they mentioned it helps to work part-time since fostering involves a lot of work, meetings, reports, and other responsibilities. On top of that, I'd need to complete training during the first year to become fully qualified. I considered it, and with the additional allowance, I could move to a .6 contract, working 3 days per week, while still covering the costs of moving to a 3-bedroom house. While that would leave me with slightly less disposable income, it wouldn't be a significant reduction. I've spoken with my work, and they said they'd support me if I decided to do this, but I haven't made a final decision. I don't want it to seem like I'm taking advantage of Archie's allowance. After sorting out the finances, I needed to talk to Henry. This was honestly the most important part of my decision. If Henry said no, I'd struggle to go ahead with it. I took him out and explained the situation. I didn't go into the details of why Archie is going into care, as it's not my story to tell, even though Archie himself has been open about his rough home life. I discussed the potential challenges: less one-on-one time, less privacy, at least in the short term while we find a bigger house, and so on. Henry was incredibly supportive. He said that he and Archie had talked about how they both wished Archie could come and live with us. I told him not to mention anything to Archie yet until I had the chance to speak with him, and he agreed. Yesterday, I arranged for social services to come over. Archie, his social worker, and I sat down to talk. They told Archie he was going to be placed in foster care. Archie cried a lot, I cried a lot, and he asked to see his mom, which the social worker said they'd arrange as soon as possible. In that moment, Archie didn't seem like a teenager. He seemed like a small child whose world was crumbling. Then they asked Archie if he'd want to stay with me. Although he was still distraught about being in care, he said he'd love to stay with me. We discussed what it would mean and how it would affect us. Afterward, Archie and his social worker spoke privately, and then the social worker and I talked. They expressed how thrilled they were about my decision and said they were pleased I planned to move to a bigger house soon, as Archie would need his own space, which I fully agree with. Normally, the boys spend most of their time upstairs playing Xbox, but later that day, Archie came down and asked if we could watch a movie together. He sat next to me, rested his head on my shoulder, and said, "Thank you for letting me stay with you." Writing this, I can feel tears welling up in my eyes again. I put my arm around him and said I'd always be there for him. Today, Archie seems a little down, which is entirely understandable. I honestly expected him to take it harder than he has. To cheer him up, we're going to see the new Lion King movie, even though I hate those live-action films. But this is for Archie. And then going out to eat, letting the boys choose where. I might return in a few months to give an update on how things are going. For now, I'm just hoping everything will be okay. I know the first few months will be the hardest. Thank you, everyone. Now for a few important comments. Commenter 1 said, "You absolute hero. You have changed that child's life for the better forever." Then I replied, "I hope I do. If I get anything out of this at all, I just hope I can make a difference." Commenter 2 said, "Thanks for the update. You sound like an incredible parent and you're doing something amazing. You are really an inspiration as a father and a man. It feels like I could learn a lot from you. Please do give another update, wishing your family all the best, a happy new year, and a wonderful 2025. Am I the idiot for finally standing up to my husband's family and choosing my sister over them? My sister and I are not close. We always catch up on birthdays, weddings, and similar family events, but we are not friends. This is partially because we are very different and partially because she doesn't approve of my marriage. My husband is 12 years older than me, and we started dating when I was 18. My husband and his family don't like my sister because she is openly feminist and doesn't care about gender norms in marriage. We hosted a birthday party for my son a few days ago. I had a headache, so I was upstairs when I heard my mother-in-law and husband arguing inside. He stormed into our room, said that my mother-in-law says that my sister called my sister-in-law an intimacy worker, said that she is ugly and fat, and then left. I said that my sister wouldn't say that because she would never use those types of derogatory words. Yuetzling, my husband said that my mother-in-law was there and heard everything, and I wasn't, to which I said that then my mother-in-law is lying, and that would be out of character for my sister to say something like that. He called me an a-hole and said that I don't even like my sister and that I get along better with my mother-in-law anyway, so how can I call her a liar? He's been on the phone with my mother-in-law and sister-in-law all day, and I've been made out to be this huge jerk. The reason why I said that is because those types of words sound like something that my sister-in-law and mother-in-law would use, not my sister. Later, I talked with my sister, and she says that she was helping put together a swing in the backyard when my sister-in-law said that she is again in men's business and that she should be helping with food. To which my sister told her to F off already, took her keys, and left with her husband. But I didn't know that when I said that my mother-in-law lied, so am I the a-hole? Now for a few comments. A commenter asked if it seemed like the mother-in-law did lie, suggesting that the sister swore at the sister-in-law but didn't use the gendered insults. To which I responded that my mother-in-law is now downplaying everything, saying that maybe she didn't understand everything since she wasn't that close. And my sister-in-law cried when my sister left. So she wasn't that coherent. My theory is that my mother-in-law didn't actually hear anything and that she believed what my sister-in-law told her, but I don't know that for sure. Now for the next post. I have a sister. Let's call her Madison. We grew up very poor in an unstable family, but we had each other and we were both very supportive of each other. We somehow managed to grow up into very different people. I always wanted a husband, a lot of kids, a white picket fence, the whole thing. And she was more of an if it happens type. I got married young and now have 2 kids with my husband. Madison got pregnant with her then boyfriend, who abandoned her while she was pregnant. She kept the pregnancy, and the father is not in the picture, nor is he on the birth certificate. I know she went through hell, raising a kid on her own between daycare, jobs, keeping the house clean, cooking, etc. When her son was 6, she met a great guy, and after dating for a year, she got married. That was almost 2 years ago. Now Madison is openly a feminist, and so is her husband. They both work, both take care of the house, they go clubbing, both together and separately, same with vacations. Her husband is raising her son as his own and even wanted to adopt him legally, which my sister refused. My husband is more traditional. I catch myself being resentful of my sister. If she is tired, her husband will make her a coffee and clean their house. Mine says that's my job and won't lift a finger even when I'm sick. When she is sick, she gets homemade soup in bed, medicine, he dotes on her and is very loving. When they are both in a mood, they order food, make a pillow fortress, and watch movies with her son. I am expected to make all meals, no matter how my day was or how I feel. He takes her son to soccer practice, goes to his games, takes him to movies, ice cream, you name it. So does she. This depends on work schedule. I have to beg my husband to occasionally show up at school for his own children. My husband makes comments about how my sister takes better care of herself than I do. Sometimes he criticizes her for that, too, which she does. She goes to the gym, runs in the morning, always has her nails done, and regularly goes to get her hair done. I can't do any of that. Who is going to take care of the kids? The house? She can do it because her husband helps her. When Madison had an altercation with my sister-in-law, her husband was immediately on her side. He doesn't care whether she was right or wrong. My husband would probably tell me to stop being a child and apologize. I know my sister doesn't deserve this, but I am starting to hate her. She was nothing but supportive. Except for my marriage, she doesn't like my husband. But even there, she is still civil with him and his family because of me. And I just want to cry when I see how different our lives are. I hate that I'm like this. I hate how I feel. I feel like I'm the worst person in the world. Now for a few comments. A commenter suggested that this is a husband problem and proposed that I tell him I will be at the gym when he gets home from work, as he wants me to take better care of myself. I responded that it is a husband problem, and even if I try and find childcare, he would be angry that I'm not with the kids. Another commenter asked why I am hating my sister instead of my husband. I replied that I don't know. I feel if I start to dissect my marriage, then a divorce is on the way, and that scares me. Now for the latest post. My husband and I have been married for 12 years. We have 2 kids. Our marriage is not great. His mother and sister often give unsolicited advice on my parenting, our marriage, and life in general. It is better in the last few months since I sat down with my husband multiple times. We talked, and this time he listened, so they backed off. Not completely, but it is better. In the last few weeks, my husband started mentioning having a 3rd child, which fills me with dread. I love children, always wanted a big family, but it would be too much. I cook, clean, take care of the kids, and work part-time from home. He doesn't really help with the house, which I am fine with, nor with the kids, which is a problem. I changed all the diapers, woke up at night, take care of fevers, doctor appointments, school, play dates, everything. The mere thought of now going through another pregnancy, then taking care of a baby, makes me want to cry. I know I would have to do it all practically alone, because my husband provides, and women have been doing it for centuries. I should pull my weight and not be spoiled. It all culminated last night. After another of his, "I take great care of you and kids, and we should have a 3rd" monologues, I snapped. I told him that he really doesn't, that kids barely know him. When he comes home from work, he doesn't pay attention to them, except to snap on our daughter when she is too loud. He doesn't know anything about our days, because he doesn't ask, and I stopped telling him because he wasn't listening anyway. He is not a great father nor husband, as he likes to preach, and I have no desire to be a single mom of a 3rd child. 2 are quite enough, thank you. He stared at me dumbfounded, then called me a C-word, delusional and ungrateful, then stormed out to his mother's house. So, am I the jerk? Now for a mini update from the comments. Hi to everyone. For clarification, we dated for 9 months and married when I was 18. I turned 31 a few days ago and can't imagine being attracted to an 18-year-old, let alone marrying one. But I didn't think like that back then. Whatever happens with my marriage, I am not having another child. I won't change my mind when it comes to that. I am on birth control, but I also have no desire to have intimacy with my husband after how he reacted and treated me. I don't have parents, and I really don't want to go to friends with this. I called my sister, Madison, and told her everything. A lot of things that you guys said in the comments, she has been saying for years. She showed up with food, wine, and her husband. My brother-in-law took my kids to their house for a sleepover, and Madison stayed with me. My husband is still with his parents, didn't call or text. My mother-in-law called, but I didn't pick up. I'm too angry and sad to have a conversation with her. Thank you everyone for commenting and giving me advice. It really means a lot. I will update when I talk with my husband and when I know how to proceed. Now for the update, 3 days later. Hello to everyone. I wanted to update since a lot of people were worried about me, and a lot has happened. For those who don't want to read a long post, things turned ugly, but I am safe, and I decided to get a divorce since my husband and I couldn't agree on how a marriage should look like. Now for a long update. The morning after I made this post, my mother-in-law and sister-in-law showed up at my house. At this point, there was still no word from my husband. Let's call him Ray. It was obvious that they expected me to be alone. My kids were with my brother-in-law at my sister Madison's house, and she was with me. So we all sat down to have a conversation. I know I was being annoying, but I kept repeating that I don't see a point in that. The conversation should happen between Ray and me. We are grown-ups and married. I didn't see a reason for them to meddle. They took great offense to that. My mother-in-law at one point said that she doesn't understand what happened to me. I am not the girl her son married anymore. I said, of course, I'm not. He married a teenager, and I'm now a grown woman. She turned beet red and started screaming at me, to which Madison said she is going to call the police if she doesn't calm down. After a few insults, mostly about how I'm harassing her son and how bad of a mother I am, they left. Ray showed up a few hours later, not to ask about our children or to see how I am, but to berate me on how I treated his mother. Again, I think Madison being there changed his plan, since he toned it down when she came downstairs. He demanded for her to leave. She refused and said that she is going to go upstairs so we can have a conversation, but she is not going anywhere until I ask her to, which I didn't. He started with basically saying that I am a bad wife, that I don't love him since I don't want more kids, and I blamed him for it. I shouldn't be speaking with him like that. He is a great father to our kids, etc. I asked which kids. Kids he hasn't seen in 3 days, and didn't ask how or where are they. He then freaked out when I told him they are at my brother-in-law and Madison's house, calling them both vile names that I don't want to repeat. Our conversation lasted an hour, and nothing productive came out of it. We were going in circles. I was scared because he multiple times started grinding his teeth and putting his hands in fists, but he would calm down after a few seconds. I said if he is not willing to work on our marriage and thinks that he is completely in the right, we should get a divorce. He, at first, said fine. If that's what I want, I should pack my stuff and leave. I started packing. He ranted about how I'm going to live without him, how he can't wait for me to explain to the kids why they are moving and similar. I said that kids are not moving anywhere. They are staying in the house, and which parent stays here is taking care of them. He really couldn't comprehend what I'm saying. I am not turning our kids' lives upside down. Divorce is enough of a change. They are not going anywhere. Then his tune changed. He was willing to hear me out. I swear I thought I'm going to pop a blood vessel from rage. I said, I don't care anymore. We are getting a divorce. Only questions are about logistics and our kids. To not make this post even longer, this also went in circles. Then he grabbed my shoulders and started shaking me. Madison got involved. They started pushing each other. I called the police. We managed to push him through the door and locked it. He left before police came. We gave statements and I stayed at the house. I am fine, but Madison has a few scratches. Currently, I'm bombarded with texts from his family. Again, not a peep from him. I am filing for divorce. I don't know why I thought that this can end any differently, but I'm also glad that I tried. For people who found my previous posts, I am ashamed of how I was speaking about Madison, but I was envious until I realized that I was projecting my unhappiness with my life onto her. She didn't deserve it. She was and still is an amazing sister, an even better person. Thank you all. I got amazing advice and words of encouragement. The internet can also be full of wonderful people, and I'm grateful for each and every one of you. Am I the idiot for hiring a fake son to prove my wife would freak out about a secret kid? My wife and I are watching Elf together, and we saw the part where Buddy, Will Ferrell's real dad, James Caan, tells his wife about Buddy, and his wife, Mary Steenburgen, gets excited about this surprise adult kid that pops into their life from a time before they knew each other. I point out to my wife that it's a little unbelievable that she, Mary Steenburgen, would immediately be on board. I then comment that she, my wife, would actually be mad at me in this situation, even if I genuinely did not know this kid existed and it was conceived before I had met her. She denies it, but I know my wife. We're in our early 40s and have been married 10 years, together for 12. So, I need a 20-ish kid to knock on the door and tell me they're my kid and that they just wanted to meet me. Gotta be convincing and really talk about how your mom and I were once really happy before she died of something tragic, dealer's choice, job pays $100, gender, race, etc. don't matter so long as you can pass for early 20s. Shouldn't take more than an hour of conversation, then you get a call or something and have to leave. Want to do this soon after the new year. You come up with the backstory, and I'll play along. I'll give you a little info up front after you take the job. Now for the update. My wife enjoyed the prank, but I was wrong. She wasn't mad that I had a kid before her. She was actually just as stoked as Mary Steenburgen was in the movie. First off, I am still married, and my wife thoroughly enjoyed the prank. I didn't even have to sleep on the couch. So, to the very dramatic naysayers, one of which compared my prank to spousal abuse, several diagnosed me with a number of mental illnesses, and at least as many said I was childish and cruel. To you I say, you're probably right, however. No idiots here. No idiots here, now boo-boo, stick your head in doo-doo. We've been married a decade. We know each other well enough to know what's over the line and what's funny. That said, it was harder than I thought to secure a fake child. Sure, I had a large number of interested parties and even a couple fabulous candidates, one of which actually looked enough like me that I started wondering if one of you got to my wife and were pulling the ultimate Uno reverse card on my prank. Unfortunately, interested and committed are two very different things. Multiple potential sons and daughters made it to the planning stage and found one reason or another to bail out. Let me be clear, I do not blame these folks at all. I don't think I'd have the courage to send the first DM, let alone actually go through with the prank orchestrated by a complete stranger. But I did find a suitable actor with the courage to come through, and I still think it was money well spent. So here's a synopsis of how it played out. No, there's not a video. Saturday afternoon, my doorbell rang. My dog lost his mind, as he is one to do, and my wife answered the door since I had pretended to take a call moments earlier. My son, looking about 20 to 25, taller and better looking than I, asked if I was home. My wife motioned to me. I had conveniently just ended my fake phone call, and I came to the door. My son, who even shared my first name, his idea, not mine, said he had something kind of strange to talk to me about. I asked if he wanted to come in, which literally almost blew the whole thing because I would sooner saw off my own foot than invite people in my house. But my wife didn't think much of it. We came to the living room. I offered him a drink. He declined. My son is an excellent actor, by the way. He would later say it was the anxiety of the situation and not wanting to mess up that made his nervous demeanor so convincing. This is from memory, but it's pretty much everything. I'll let my son chime in with details should he feel like outing himself. Do you remember old ex-girlfriend I mentioned at least once in my 10-year marriage in front of my wife? Yeah, that's my mother. It was my wife who reacted first with, "Oh, no way." So I looked at her, feigning ignorance, and then back at my son and said, "Is she okay?" "Yeah, she's fine. That's not why I'm here." My wife was nearly busting out of her chair, totally engrossed and completely consumed with two strong theories. Her husband had a long-lost son, and more importantly, her husband hasn't figured out yet that he has a long-lost son. So I say, "Out with it, kid. What's going on?" I'm 22 years old. My wife's eyes essentially bugged out of her head, having now confirmed her theories in her mind. She looks at me, seemingly annoyed that I hadn't put these obvious puzzle pieces together, and interrupts my fake kid. Nearly laughed, but I held it together. "I think he's telling you that he thinks you're his father." My acting is not so great, but I gave it a shot with, "Wait, what?" My look of shock could use some work, but it played for the audience. My son looked at me. "She's right, and I'm not here to ask for anything. In fact, I don't have a lot of time to stay, but I just wanted to meet you and maybe exchange numbers." This is a lot to take in. I knew your mother a long time ago, and she never said, I didn't know. I'm paraphrasing, but this kid deserves an Oscar. She never told you. She only told me on Christmas morning. She didn't say anything bad about you, just that it was over, and she was already dating my dad when she found out she was pregnant with me. Wait, does your dad know? Of course, and I've always known he wasn't my biological father. He's a great dad, but lately I'd been wondering who my real father was, so I asked Mom and she told me. Wow, I freely admit. I had the easy part. My wife, not saying anything, just taking it all in. Not much else to tell in terms of the production. We exchanged numbers, then he got his own fake phone call, reminding him he was late for something or other, and I walked him out. The rest of the production was just my wife and I. I came back to the living room doing my best bewildered act. We talked about it, covered things like paternity tests, etc., and it turns out I was way wrong. My wife wasn't mad, miffed, or even slightly annoyed. She was full-on amazed, excited, and entertained by the whole thing. I waited a few hours before I fessed up, but before I did, she kept saying how cool it was that I might have a son. And then when I told her it was all a nonsense lie I made up to prove a point, she laughed. A lot. I can't decide what amused her more, the effort I put into the ruse, or the fact that I ended up proving her right in the process. Here are a couple of gems from wife after I told her the truth. Where the hell did you find that guy? I'm glad your son wasn't a serial unalived. I might have been mad if he came here looking for money. Next time you can save $100 and just assume you're wrong. You know I'm going to get you back, right? That last one has me a little worried.